One thing I have always loved about Sega's Master System is that it has managed to be a gift that keeps on giving. Many years after its abysmal showing in North America, I was finding games from Japan and Europe I have never even heard of. Hell, every so often I still find a game here and there I didn't know much about today. It has actually made creating videos for the hardware quite easy and always something I enjoy. So I'm back with another 10 Master System games to talk about, and this time, they are all exclusive and can be played no place else. Some of these I wouldn't discover until many years after the platform was dead and gone. Let's get started. In 1989, Sega released the in-house developed Battle Outrun in Europe. The red-headed stepchild of the series, it's a direct clone of Chase HQ, and has you running criminals down across the United States. There are 8 stages of increasing difficulty, and you can upgrade your car on each and every stage. Each level begins with you trying to find the bad guy while an endless parade of cars do everything in their power to stop you. Once you find the man you are looking for, you have to run him down and wreck his car. Very little here has to do with the actual Outrun license, it's sports. You do get to change the music at the beginning and the car kinda looks the same, but the similarities in there. Your appreciation of this is very much going to depend on what you're expecting. If you're a fan of Chase HQ, you should have an overall positive opinion. If you are wanting it to be more Outrun, you likely will be left disappointed. Tectoy would pick this up for a Brazilian release as well. An early release for the Master System was Zillion. It's based on a Japanese TV series of the same name. You start out as JJ, an operative whose job it is to infiltrate an enemy base and destroy it. You can also rescue other members of your team to use them later in the game. Each area has a series of rooms, computer consoles, and capsules that contain power-ups and key items to help you on your adventure. Be sure to pay attention at the beginning so you can understand how to manipulate the computers to control each room's defense system. This makes a heck of a difference in the enjoyment of it. It's often compared to Metroid on the NES, but to me it's quite its own thing. It's got plenty of action, but feels much more like a puzzle game as opposed to an adventure. You may also notice that the weapon used by the main dude is patterned after the Sega Light Phaser, something that Sega parlayed into toys like laser tag kits in Japan. This is a good one if you enjoy games that make you think a bit in between your bouts of ass kicking. I love Sega, but sometimes they release games that just make me shake my head and wonder why. Like most children of the 80s, I got a kick out of the TV show Alf, which was about a furry alien who was stranded on Earth with an American family. The video game was made to capitalize on the show's short-lived success, and oh my god is it a load of steaming crap. The easiest way to describe this abomination is that it's a platforming adventure game that has you searching for items to overcome various obstacles. The first time you play it, you have no clue what to do, and the gameplay is just god-awful. Get close to anything and you're dead. The areas seem to repeat endlessly, and good lord is the music a droning creation of the devil himself. By the time you start to piece together little clues like using the cat to chase away mice and finding ways to defend yourself, you won't care. This game runs its course in mere minutes, besting all but the most diehard among us. This was the very first game that Sega of America had involvement with, an omen of things to come. Games like E.T. for the Atari 2600 catch a hell of a bad rap for being bad licensed games, but this very much deserves to be on that list. In 1989, Sega released a game called Basketball Nightmare that I wouldn't play until many years later. It's about a basketball team that must play through 6 games against monsters like werewolves. It also has a 2-player mode that allows you to play country against country. It's a traditional 5-on-5 game otherwise, with some pretty average gameplay that tends to be much slower than you'd like it to be. Fortunately, the presentation is aided by beautiful cinemas of the players doing different types of dunks. They put you in mind of the scenes from Double Dribble, only now with much more color and detail. North America never got this one, but Tectoy did release it in Brazil, and of course PAL regions got it as well. It's actually not a bad game to waste a few minutes on if you enjoy the sport. In 1987, Sega released Kung Fu Kid, a beat-em-up about a master martial artist who is trying to save his people from an evil monster trying to devour them. Of course, loads of enemies are trying to stop you along the way. Stages are mainly made up of side-scrolling action until you get to the stronger character that must be beaten in one-on-one combat. You have the ability to do ground-based and jumping attacks as well as projectiles. It feels like a faster, more dynamic version of the Irem arcade classic Kung Fu Master. It's simple, but a heck of a good playing game once you get used to the feeling of everything. The visuals are colorful and the music is quite good too. It was released in every major territory, so finding a version of it should be easy. It's a sequel to the SG-1000 hit Dragon Wing, which stars the same main character. You guys remember Mystic Defender on the Sega Genesis? Well, it actually had a prequel on the Master System called Spellcaster. It's quite similar in design, but offers more of an adventure feel with exploration, conversations, puzzle elements, and a secondary point-and-click interface. The action portions involve you making your way through enemy-infested stages until you get to your destination. There you'll speak to someone to try to find out your next stop. Visually, the game is quite good looking, very colorful and with lots of enemies on screen. The music is quite memorable too. The password system is a godsend because this one can be really difficult. It's highly recommended if you enjoy a touch of adventure with your action games, and definitely an interesting beginning for the franchise. In 1989, Sanritsu released a complete rip-off of Capcom's vertically scrolling shooter 1942. Bomber Raid is an extremely similar game in just about every single way. That of course doesn't mean it's a bad game. You'll find a great soundtrack here as well as some decent shooting action. It does have a few elements that annoy the heck out of me, like enemies that constantly come from behind you and a rather weak power-up system. I always had a lot of trouble tracking down both the enemy shots as well as my own. Everything tends to blend together in the background. When this ended up on the Master System in 1989, the platform had numerous better shoot-em-ups, so it's hard to give this one a go knowing I could be playing something better. For you fans of the very similar Capcom shooters, you should find this very much to your liking. Games like Operation Wolf and Rambo were pretty popular Master System games, so when I found the 1990 European exclusive Double Hawk, I was eager to see how good it was. It's a third-person shooter similar to games like NAM 1975 on the Neo Geo. You control both the crosshairs and your player's position on the screen. This allows you to aim and shoot enemies, as well as move around to avoid enemy fire and collect power-ups. It's actually not a bad little game at all, but it does suffer a few weaknesses that hold it back. First, there is no music during gameplay. The only thing you'll hear here is sound effects. Shoot-'em-ups need good music, and its absence is deafening. Master System games were also incredibly colorful most of the time, but this looks more like a low-color NES title. I really think this could have been much more impressive with a little more attention to the presentation, but it still plays decent. I think shooter fans who enjoyed similar titles will find the most enjoyment in it. In 1987, Japanese exclusive Alex Kidd BMX Trial was another one that took me years to discover. Unlike most of his other adventures, Alex Kidd is only racing in this one. There are no platforming segments at all. It uses the paddle controller, a special Japanese-only pad with a turn knob instead of a directional pad. Visually, it's very similar to other Alex Kidd games in regards to color and art design, but the gameplay all happens in vertically scrolling stages with you trying to get the best time while avoiding obstacles and other riders. The game is not easy to play, and I crashed so many times I lost count. Right from the beginning, you get tracks that are designed to wipe you out without mercy. Missed jumps were the worst because it basically made it so completing a track was impossible. You do start to get the feel for it after a while, but it stays incredibly challenging and you are always seconds away from your next wreck. The FM music is actually really good here, so you are at least entertained while you are playing this crashing simulator. In 1989, the Master System got another platforming run-and-gun similar to Zillion called Cyborg Hunter. You have penetrated the enemy's mega fortress and must explore it for items and weapons to survive the onslaught. Each area is connected by a series of elevators and floors you must navigate to find what you need. Enemies of course try and stop you, and you will need to fight your way through them to get to the boss of each area. You have a navigator that tells you what you are looking for, so pay close attention. An on-screen map shows your progress and position, and pressing a button on controller 2 allows you to access your inventory, so you are screwed without an additional pad. This one is quite unique though, and I enjoyed messing around with it. It does get hard as heck later in the game, so consulting a walkthrough is a good way to deal with things if you become overwhelmed. It supports FM sound, and the Japanese original was based on an anime called Sonic Soldier Borgman. While making this episode, I realized there are more games than you would have thought that were released for the Master System that never got ported to any other home console. Sometimes it was an outside license that determined that, and sometimes it was just because the game was simply obscure. There are easily enough for a part 2 and 3 to this series, so if you like this kind of coverage, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Hell, I might even get up enough courage to give Psycho Fox another go. I'm Sega X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.